We're going to begin. Bezat Hashem, we're going to look at Parashat Yitro. Tonight's class, L'ilui Nishmat Yisrael Mordechai ben Eliezer Halevi, v'gam L'ilui Nishmat Rachel bat Rivka, and everybody who needs L'ilui Neshama, and also L'had L'chaim L'chaim. We're also learning the Refuat Shelema Mazal bat Liza. Okay. We have towards the end of this parsha, actually the last pasuk in this week's parsha, V'lo ta'aleh v'ma'alot al mizbehi asher lo tigale ervatecha alav. The pasuk says that when making the ascent to go up to the mizbeach, you should not make steps. Rather, what are you supposed to make? A ramp. And what's the reason for this? What's the reason why you don't want steps? So what does Rashi say? Rashi says that because even though there really no is problem, what would be the problem? When you're walking up steps, sometimes the bottom, especially they would wear like robes, the bottom would be exposed, right? It would be exposed, and ki'ilu it's as if you're exposing your private parts to the mizbeach, which would not be appropriate. And Rashi says, but even though that's not true, why? Because the pasuk says before, it's going to say further, v'aseh lahem michnesei bad. You should make for them pants, basically. Okay, so if they're going to have pants, then nothing's going to be exposed. But rather, says Rashi, that you want to stay away from anything that can look like something that's inappropriate. And therefore what? Don't make steps, make ramp. This way, when you walk on the ramp, and the Rambam says you're going to walk heel to toe. So you're going to walk in a way that nothing is going to be exposed. Now, Rashi continues and says to us that now, if it comes to stones, right, comes to this ramp, and Hashem wants you to act in a way that's appropriate, then chavercha shehu bidmut yotzcha umakpid al bizyono al achat kama v'chama. Rashi brings the Mechilta. The Midrash says that this is a lesson to you. If you have to be so careful with the stones not to expose yourself, even though they're not really exposing themselves to the stones, how much more careful you have to be when it comes to a human, when it comes to people. The idea here is that the Torah, as the Chafetz Chaim said, the Torah tells people how to be people. When you see a mitzvah in the Torah, yes, there's a mitzvah. I have to do this, and that. And there's halachot related to that mitzvah, and how it has to happen. But in the end of the day, there's a lesson behind that. How a person is supposed to act, how a person is supposed to behave. And it's not that I have to respect the stone and not expose myself, but rather I have to always be thinking how to be sensitive to others. In fact, the Torah has many more mitzvot, and the Chachamim give us more mitzvot that do this exact thing. It does what's called sensitivity training. Here is another example. We're going to have a next week's parasha that tells us, when you have treif meat, don't eat it. What should you do with it instead? La kelev tashlichun oto. Send it to the dog. The Ibn Ezra and the Dad Zekinim, they both ask the question. They say, why have to send it to the dog? Let me sell it to the Goyish butcher. Let me make money off it. Okay, it's not kosher. Let me at least make some money off it. What? He says very good. He says, Hakarat HaTov. What Hakarat HaTov? He says, up until now, what were they using the dogs for? The dogs weren't watchdogs, watch guards. They were watching the sheep and everything. And one day, the dog fell asleep, and this wolf ran in and tore the sheep. He made a teref, right? And now it's asur to eat. So what do you do with it? What would a person do if his dog wasn't behaving right? Scream at him, yell him, hit him. I don't know what they do with dogs. I don't have a dog. But you would show that you're upset. The Torah says don't do that. Instead, give him, the one who fell asleep, give him that sheep to eat. Give him that meat to eat. Why? For all the other times that he didn't fall asleep. That's the way a person has to think. That's what Ibn Ezra says. That's what the Genim says. In order for a person to understand how to appreciate the dog for all the other 99 times that he didn't fall asleep, 1,000 times he didn't fall asleep.
Not for Yitziat Mitzrayim. It's also Yitziat Mitzrayim.
It's also related to that. That's the Yalkut Shimoni, right? That they kept quiet and they didn't bark. That's also true. But this is the way that that's a Kenim and the Ibn Ezra understand this. Another interesting halakha. The Torah tells us, right? We have halacha brings down that usually when you have different foods in front of you, there's an order of what to eat and how to make the berachot. So if you have wine and mizonot, which one are you supposed to do first?
Wine.
Which one are you supposed to do? Halakha, which one are you supposed to do? Mizonot.
Mizonot comes first?
Yeah, hamotzi. Mizonot.
Hamotzi. Okay.
And then, but what happens Friday night, Shabbat morning? We can't eat until we make Kiddush. But really, we should be making hamotzi first, because we have the wheat in front of us. Right? Based on the pasuk of Eretz, Chita, Sorah, right? The 7 species, right? Everything that's closer to the word Eretz is going to be closer in the Beracha. So wheat is first. So it's before Geffen. But we can't do that. So what do? We cover the halot. We cover the hamotzi. We cover also the mizonot. Right? Halakha is, if you have on the table mizonot, you should also cover the mizonot. Right? Because technically that should be first. Now, some people think that that's the whole halakha, I have to cover it. But our Mefarshim, our Chazal Chachamim tell us that the idea behind that is sensitivity training. Somebody else is there, and you're supposed to give them proper respect, and you can't do it. You have to do it in a way that's still respectful. You have to figure out a way to respect somebody else. You don't want to humiliate the bread. You don't want to humiliate somebody else. So you have to do it in a proper way. Here's another one. Listen to this.
Does mizonot come before wine? Or
yeah.
No, hamotzi.
Mizonot gam ken.
So mizonot and hamotzi is the same level? So if you have a cake and wine in front of you,
yeah.
So
You would take cake first, yeah.
Okay.
Mizonot.
I knew it was hamotzi, but I didn't know it was
And so on Tu B'Shvat Seder, you would do that because there's no kiddush. So you would do mizonot first, and then you would go to the Bori Priya Geffen. Ken. Now, listen to this. The Shulchan Aruch brings a halakha based on the Gemara, Masechet Berachot. When one goes to a cemetery, you're not allowed to do any mitzvot in the cemetery. A person has his tzitzit, he wears it sticking out. What is he supposed to do? He has to put it in. He's not supposed to pray in the cemetery. He's not supposed to learn in the cemetery. Why? What's this based on? Loeg? Larash. You don't want to make fun of a poor person. Right? Here's this poor person. Who's this poor person? He's not poor. He's poor that he cannot do any mitzvot. So you cannot make fun of him by doing mitzvot. Now, come on. The guy's dead. You're alive. You're mitzvot. The idea is, again, sensitivity training. It's not just about being respectful to the dead. Yes, but it's being respectful all the time. The Torah wants us again and again to think of how we are acting in front of other people, in front of others. Listen to this. There is a minhag that the Ramah brings down that for a siman bracha for the week is to pour some of the Havdalah wine on the ground. We don't pour it on the ground today. We pour it into the plates that under the cup, right? And says the Ramah, ועושים כן לסימן טוב בתחילת השבוע. You want to have a good week? Make sure some of the wine spills out of your cup. Now, you ever heard of this as a segula? Spill some wine out of the cup, and you're good?
Over pour it or over.
Have it spill. Have it spill over.
Okay.
Over pour it or make it spill, whatever it is. And says the Rama, quoting a Chazal, Kol bayit shelo nishpach bo yain kamayim ein bo siman beracha. If you're not spilling in your house wine as water spills, you have no beracha. So what's the beracha of spilling the wine? Why? Spilling wine, I make a beracha out of this. This is right. One time I was at a seder and somebody hit somebody's cup and it went on his suit. And he said, "You owe me dry cleaning." He says, "No, you owe me. It's a siman beracha. I spilled the wine on you, right?" Anyway, what's the idea? The Taz says an amazing idea. The Taz says, how does this get to siman beracha? So I'll tell you. If a person is going to be so worried, expensive wine spilled, he's going to be like this the whole time. He's not going to have any beracha. He's so worried all the time. Oh, yeah. But if the beginning of the week you're mivater, and you let wine that's expensive fall, and you say, it's okay, the whole week you're going to be feeling good. The whole week you have siman beracha. It's because it's not that the segula of me spilling the wine. It's rather sensitivity training, again, to teach you how to live in life. Don't be uptight. Don't go crazy.
It's not just a book.
Exactly. Rav Belsky, Zecher Tzadik Bracha, would say, if you have kids at home and you have dishes, expect that your dishes should break. And don't get upset about it. That's a siman beracha. That you have the kids at home and dishes are breaking. So you get them to wash the dishes and the dish breaks. It's supposed to break. I can. The siman beracha. This is great. It's just great. It's beautiful sensitivity training. Teaches a person how to behave in life, how to think, how to act, how to be.
It's supposed to be training their kids to see also. It's
exactly.
A ripple thing, isn't it?
How does Abba and Mommy, how do they react to a broken dish?
Setting up future generations.
How do they react to something falling, breaking, this and that?
These things they remember.
100%. So this is perhaps the lesson at the end of Parashat Yitro, the parasha of the Ten Commandments, the parasha where you have the Gilui Shechina, so to speak, all Klal Yisrael. And the parasha ends off with this idea, an idea that a person has to go his entire life with. The mitzvot, what did it teach me? How am I supposed to behave with this mitzvot that Hashem taught me? Derachei no'am, mechonat tiwatea shalom. That's how a person has to think, be, and act. There's a story told of Reuben Elbaz. Shlita brings a story. Listen to this. He says that the Alter of Kelm used to have one of the students used to prepare him breakfast every morning. And one morning, the boy who always prepares it, he couldn't be there. So he told his friend, "Can you please prepare breakfast for the Rosh Hashiva, for the Alter?" And the boy was very excited. He had this chut to make for the Alter of Kelm a breakfast. He got up early. He made everything. He prepared everything. He brought it to the Alter. And the Alter of Kelm took one bite and said, "Phui, this is poison. What did you give me?" So the Bocher was beside himself. He says, "What do you mean, Rabbi? I'm so sorry. I didn't put poison. I'm so careful here. All the fresh ingredients and everything. What do you mean poison?" So the Alter of Kelm sat him down and said to him, "Look, I got to tell you something. Listen. When you prepared this porridge, what were you thinking?" The boy says, "I was thinking I want to make good porridge for the Shiva." And the Alter says, "No, tell me truly, what were you thinking?" He says, "No, that's what I was thinking." He says, "And what else were you thinking?" He says, "I was also thinking, let me make it better than the other guy. Let me make it better than the other guy who always makes it every day." Instead of the Alter of Kelm, he said to him, "That's exactly why it tastes like poison. Because that thought in itself is improper. When a person," he said as follows, "You said, let it be tastier for the rabbi than my friend's porridge. Thoughts of this kind of trying to outdo another take root in the heart and settle there. Eventually, they can lead, God forbid, even to murder. So the altar of Kel. The mind, heart, and soul function as a database. Each victory over another, each moment of joy at someone else's misfortune, each feeling of satisfaction at another's failure, all accumulate. Over time, they can, God forbid, form a mindset that leads to great harm. But exercising caution and respecting others is also honoring the divine image within them. You have to be careful. Not even to think, I'm going to outdo the other guy. That itself, the Alter Rebbe said, is a bad thing. That's going to lead you, has shalom, to murder. Person has to be very careful. He brings in another true story. He says how a guy, he's 16 years old, he has a dream. His father, who was an Ish Kodesh, was a holy man, comes to him in his dream at his 60th birthday and tells his son, I need you to come to Olam HaEmet. His son says, what do you mean? I'm a young guy. He says, no, they have a court case up here and you're involved in there, and really they were going to call you 2 years ago. But you had certain zechutim, they let you stay for another 2 years. Now it's almost time for you to come. He says, what's the court case about? He says, somebody got harmed, you were involved in there, and they want you to come up here. The guy says he woke up in a scare. He was beside himself, shaking. He started fasting, and he said, you know what, I have to figure this out. So he went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. He prayed with him in the same minyan. He tried to get into him right away, but they didn't let him in right away. Took him some time throughout the day. Finally, he gets into Reb Chaim Kanievsky. And he tells Reb Chaim Kanievsky, this is the dream I had. And Reb Chaim Kanievsky said, the Gemara Bracha says, dreams are just dreams, right? And he says, no, this is a dream that's just a dream, right? It's a real dream. And Reb Chaim says, okay, listen, did you figure out what it was? He says, I've been thinking and thinking. He told me 43 years ago, I'm trying to remember this and that. He says, I think in the yeshiva, one time something happened, maybe that's the case. So Chaim said, okay, we'll get a bezdin, and put a bezdin together. You'll be mocha anyone who gave you harm, and this way, you're not involved in the case anymore. They did it. And afterwards, the guy said, I still didn't feel good. I still felt very shaky and scared. So he said, I decided to go and ask those people to both forgive them and then to ask me for forgiveness. What was the story? He says was 43 years earlier, so 43 and 60, how much is he? How old is he at that time?
43 and 60?
Yeah, it's 43 minus 6, so he's 17 years old. He says he was a bocher in yeshiva. And he came to the Bet Midrash to learn. He saw a Gemara, he picked it up and he sat down to learn. As he's sitting and learning, a second guy comes over and says, that's my Gemara. He says, listen, you're doing Bittul Torah, I'm learning already. Because every Gemara is the same Gemara, just go to another Gemara. He says, no, it's my Gemara. And he says he ignored him. And the second guy who said it's his Gemara, went and got a rabbi in the yeshiva and said, this guy took my Gemara. And the rabbi came over and said to him, give him his Gemara, it's his Gemara. So I told the rabbi the same thing, I'm sorry, but I already started learning, I don't want to get a Gemara. So he says, right then, the rabbi smacked me in the face. In the whole Bet Midrash, I was embarrassed. He said, at that point, I gave the Gemara away. Took another Gemara and continued to learn, but I was very, very embarrassed. He says, afterwards, I went to the Rosh Yeshiva, and the Rosh Yeshiva said, no, it's okay, forget about it, just move on, learn, don't worry about this. And he says, but the truth is, no matter where I went in life, that episode was still eating away at me. He smacked me in front of the whole Bet Midrash about a Gemara that I don't even know if it was really that guy's Gemara, and then this whole nonsense. And he said, I always felt this grudge in me. And he says, a couple of times I try to put myself in front of this rabbi, maybe he'll ask mechila, maybe he'll say, I'm sorry for slapping me, right? It never happened. But he says, you know what? Now I'm going to go back to this rabbi and I'm going to bring it to him, and I'm going to be mochel him, and I'm going to ask him that he should ask me for forgiveness as well. Story goes, he goes to find this rabbi. He comes to the house. They tell him that your rabbi is not here. He's in the ICU. He's in the intensive care unit in the hospital. He comes to the intensive care unit in the hospital and he sees his rabbi. The story goes, his rabbi's face is like doing a jerking motion, as if he's getting slapped, and he keeps moving his head this way. Non-stop, 24/7. He's moving his head like in a jerk motion like this. He gets in to see his rabbi. His rabbi is still somewhat there. He says, "You remember me?" He says, "Yes, I remember you." He says, "Listen, I want to be mochel for what you did. Please ask me mechila as well, so I can be mochel you and you can be mochel me." And the rabbi said to him, "You're right. For a long time I didn't think about it, but you're right. Ask mechila, gave mechila. They're all mochel each other. Good." Story goes, not soon right after, not too long after that, the rabbi's twitches stopped, and he actually ended up going home, and he got better. Now you still have to go find this bocher, this other guy, that the whole story started with. And he wanted to go ask him mechila, and him to ask him mechila from him. He says by the time he found him, he was already in a mental institution, totally lost his brains, couldn't talk, couldn't anything. And before he knew it, the guy already passed away, and he never able to ask mechila one way or the other. But said Rabbi Reuven Elbaz, here you see, story after story, I have to be so careful about other people. How we behave with them, how we act with them, how we do things. If the Torah is telling us be careful with the steps, Torah is telling you be careful with the dogs, Torah is telling you be careful with the dead people, Torah is telling you all these things to be careful with. It's not just to be careful with, it's to teach you how to be careful with everybody, especially the living, how to be sensitive to all of them. It's a very, very important midah that a person needs to have. And that actually segues into the next topic that I want to get into, which will lead us, this is the hakdama to the halachic portion of the shir. So, we have in this week's parasha that Yitro comes to the Midbar, right? So Yitro, when he came, before Matan Torah, after Matan Torah, there's an interesting Mechilta and the Rechaim. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. There's Tanchuma on that. But in the end of the day, the pasuk says, "Vayetze Moshe lekrat poteno." Moshe went out to greet his father-in-law. The Sefarno says, despite Moshe Rabbeinu having achieved such a high status, Moshe Rabbeinu himself went to greet his father-in-law. He didn't say it's beneath me now, right? I'm the king of the Jews. I'm speaking panim to Hashem. It's not. No, Moshe Rabbeinu himself went out to greet his father-in-law. And says the Sefarno, this is the way of great people. Even though they become great, they do never think it's beneath their dignity to show someone else respect. Especially someone who has been good to them. Someone who's been good to them, they never view it as being beneath their dignity to give them respect. Alright? Somebody the other day, I was giving him a piece of kugel. He said, I never saw a rabbi give somebody a piece of kugel. I said, I don't know what type of rabbis you've been around before. If I have a piece of kugel, I'm going to give it to you. Right? Because you got to be nice to everybody. Right? Listen to this interesting story. Rabbi Uri Tiger, he says, it happened with Chaim Kanievsky. He says that Uri Tiger himself, this happened with him. He says he went to Rav Chaim. They were working on a certain sefer, and at the time he had his children with him. He had a couple of children, and he took them with him. And one of his children had a child's bottle. They were talking. He was talking in halacha, and then he left. And he realizes after he leaves that he left the bottle there. So he comes back to Rav Chaim's house, and the family says, what are you doing? He says, I forgot the bottle. He says, oh, now that explains what Rav Chaim was doing. What happened? They said as soon as he left, Rav Chaim had a baby bottle in his hand and was running outside. Imagine Rav Chaim running. Rav Chaim was running outside, out the house, looking all around. Where were you? Someone was. We asked him what you were doing. He didn't answer us, but he was looking. So he finally gets back into the study, and Rav Chaim sees Rav Chaim jumps up and says, here's the bottle. So Rav Uri says to him, listen, we have a halacha, b'hashavas haveda, zaken ve'eno lefi kivodo. If it's an older person, it's not lefi his kavod, or he's a chacham, it's not, he doesn't have to return it. Why? He says, listen, so Chaim says, when it comes to a little child kneeling his bottle, there is no zaken, lefi kivodo, nefi kavodo. He says, I got to get it back to you in the end of the day. Right? He's going to go and do what's proper for somebody else. The Mishnah Berurah says, What's the mitzvah of achnasat orchim? Mitzvah of achnasat orchim. Inviting guests, right? Says Moshe Rabbeinu, inviting guests means to eat together with the guests.
It's hard when you're serving.
To eat together with the guests. Right? It's the famous story with the Rav Chaim Oizer and Rav Yaakov Weinberg, the Serdei Eish. He came to visit Rav Chaim Oizer. Chaim Oizer was on Sukkot. Chaim Oizer was sick. He wasn't feeling so well. So he comes to the Sukkah. He tells Rav Yaakov Weinberg, he says, listen, I'm potter from a Sukkah because I'm not feeling well. And he walks out. And a few minutes later, he walks back in. And he says, yeah, I'm potter from the Sukkah, but I'm not potter from Achnasas Orchim. So he continues to sit there and eats with him there. Okay? I'm potter from Sukkah, you're right. Achnasas Orchim, I'm not. So I have to eat with you. So he sat down and he ate with him. There's a pasuk in Mishlei. And the pasuk says, in English, I'll read it, the tzaddik eats to satisfy his desires, while the stomach of the wicked one remains empty. How do you understand this? So the B'kurei Aviv, he explains, this is the explanation. The tzaddik eats to satisfy his desires. The tzaddik wants to do achnasat orchim. Therefore, he eats. But the Rasha doesn't want to give the other guy his food. My money, my food, why should I give it to him? So he's always hungry because he has the guest there, but he doesn't want to eat. So if you have a guest and you're not eating with him, you didn't do achnasat orchim. Listen to this beautiful idea. Let's go further. The Talmud tells us of a man called Ben Kalba Samua. Right? Who is Ben Kalba Samua? Very rich person. Why is he called Kalba Samua? Everybody everyone came to him, came full. It means a full dog, a satiated dog. Kalba Samua. There's a Mefarish that says, 1 second, why are you calling him Kalba Samua? You should call him Kalba Saveya. He makes others satiated. Kabul Savua means he himself is full. It says this is the reason. Because he didn't just say, go, here's your food and eat. He ate with every guest who came in. All day he was eating. He was Kabul Savua. He didn't want to, he wouldn't let someone eat alone. It's a big thing. Sometimes I'm full already. I don't want to eat, but you have a guest, you have to eat. It's amazing. And he says, and why this lashon of the dog, Kabul Savua, dog? So he says, Gemara Nidarim, that says, people do not like to only receive things and have nothing to contribute. They say, I am not a dog that can only benefit from you, but have nothing to give back. See, the guest, when you sit with him and eat, he feels that he's giving you company, and he's talking to you. So now he feels that he's not just taking food from you, but rather he's giving you company.
That's why also when a guest offers to give you something, you should take it. You shouldn't say, no, I mean, it's not necessary, but you'll take it because you want to make it feel good.
That's right. Making someone else feel good, that's part of the mitzvah. That's part of the mitzvah. In fact, listen to this. The Gemara in Kiddushin says, if a woman says to the man, sit with me and keep me company, and I will marry you in exchange of that. It works? The Gemara says yes. Because it's considered giving her something of value. He's keeping her company. That's considered value. It works as Kiddushin. You hear this? Ben Kaba Savua made himself seem as though he was the needy one. As if he was the dog. He was a full dog. He was keep taking everybody. He's the guy. That's what he made it look like. There's a Gemara. It says a person is allowed to say when giving tzedakah, the contribution to tzedakah is on condition that my son should live as a tzaddik gomer, a completely righteous person. Right? I'm giving out tonight that my son should be a tzaddik gomer. How does that work? Second Gemara, it works. And Mordechai Banet explained why. You know why? Because now you're not just giving tzedakah to the poor person, but you're telling the poor person, because I gave you tzedakah, you're giving me back the zchut that my son should be a tzaddik gomer. Because of the tzedakah that's going to you, you're giving me back something that my son's going to be a tzaddik gomer. And that's a true tzedakah. When you're not giving, I'm making the guy feel like he's a taker, but rather you're making the taker feel as if he is the giver.
So that's okay.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Again, all this sensitivity training, how to be, how to think, how to act like a human, in this week's parasha, you get the Torah, you get the Ten Commandments, you learn how to be a person. So, on this topic, as Moshe the Kat Hoteno, let's talk a little bit about the halacha, everyone's favorite, which is honoring our in-laws. Okay?
It's like parents.
So is it or is it not? Let's take a look. The Torah brings down in Yoreh De'ah 240. The Torah brings down a statement that says it's a chiyuv to honor your in-laws. That's the Torah's statement. The Shulchan Aruch also says very similar in Siman 240 in Yoreh De'ah. You have to mechabed your in-laws, your parents-in-laws. You have to give them honor. Now, it's based on a few sources, some of them being Chazal, including a Mechilta. There's a Yalkut Shimoni and a Mechilta. Okay, so the Yalkut Shimoni says, Amar le David l'Shaul. There's a pasuk in Shmuel when after David cuts off Shaul's garment, the corner, okay, and then they meet, and Amar le David l'Shaul va'avi ra'ah gam ra'ah. Take a look, my father. Take a look. Who's Shaul? Shaul is his father-in-law. He's also the king, right? So since he says, this is the way Chacham Vadia and Yechevedat understands this. So since he says Avi, he says my father. Really, you should give him cover because he's the king. But everyone has to give him cover as the king. He says Avi, he says, oh, that's my father. So he's giving respect as a father. So that's what one opinion in the Yalkut Shimoni says. That's Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbanan Amri, and the Rabbanan said, no. When he was saying Va'avi, my father, look, he was talking to Avner. Avner was his father in Torah. He taught him Torah. So he was his father in Torah. So he's saying Avi, as he's speaking to him, so you have a Machlokas Rabbanan, Rabbi Yehuda. The Mechilta brings this week's parasha. The Mechilta says, Vayetze Moshe lekat choteno v'yishtachu v'yishakloi. Right? He bowed down. He kissed him. Any of them, mi yishtachav elemi or mi yishek lemi. I don't know who bowed down to who kissed who. I don't know. Because you oimer v'yishalu ish l're'eu. Then it says the man asked each other. Right? They asked a friend, mi akari ish. Who's considered the man? Who's considered ish in the Torah? Who is the ish? Zeh Moshe. Because it says Ish Moshe, right? That's what it says later on. So have you ever Moshe was the one who bowed down to Yitro. Moshe was the one who kissed him. Moshe was the one who hugged him. Moshe was the one who asked him. Mikan Lamdu, says the Mechilta. This is a Chazal, this is a Midrash. Shaya Adam Muchan L'Chavet Chamav. A person has to be ready to honor his parents-in-laws. So, based on this, the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch seem to say that it is a mitzvah, d'oraita, so to speak, on the same level, a kibbud avim. You have to honor them the same. That's what you were saying, right? Honoring the in-laws like the same. However,
because you're one with your wife.
So that's the Aruch HaShulchan. Hold on. I believe that's the Aruch HaShulchan. If not, that's the Sefer Charedim. So the Sefer Charedim says what you just said. Sefer Charedim says, Ishtay Keguvoy. Right? If I'm one with my wife, then my wife's parents are my parents. And then I have to give them the same respect. Now, the Aruch HaShulchan is not convinced. The Aruch HaShulchan says just because David HaMelech used the word Avi doesn't mean that he means father. Sometimes you can use the word Avi as a way of general respect. He says, you see by Elisha referred to Yohanavi, Avi. You see that Naaman's servants referred to Elisha as Avi as well. So sometimes the word father is used as a sign of respect. And that's what the Aruch HaShulchan wants to say. Aruch HaShulchan then wants to say maybe that since Shaul was trying to kill David, so maybe he had no reason to honor him, but since he's a parent, he still had to honor him. That's what he wants to say. Anyway, I said the Shulchan Aruch and the Mechaber and the Torah, they all say the same thing. You have to mechaber the in-laws. The question is, what's the nature of the obligation? Is it the exact same as your parents, or is it slightly less? So the chida,
slightly less, because lo aleinu, if you get divorced, what happens to those parents? You can't divorce your parents. What happens to your parents? Your wife's parents.
Right? Parents-in-laws, you also separate from, right?
It becomes it's not the same. It's like 1A, but I don't know.
So the Bach brings a midrash Seicher type, and the Bach says, according to the midrash, it's mamish like your father. Your father-in-law is mamish like your father. Sefer Charedim says ishto kegufo, mamish like your father. But the Bach says no. He says that one should show his in-laws proper respect in the manner that you respect elderly people. And the Shach says that is the halakha l'maaseh. So here I'm going to read to you in the Yalkut Yosef what he says. Chayiv adam lechaber chamav v'chamoto. He has to respect his father-in-law and his mother-in-law. Bekima v'hidur. He has to stand up for them. Kishmegim l'toich arba amotav. As when they come into his 4 amot. Kimo shemechabedim et hazekenim hachashuvim. The same way you respect elder people. You have to respect your in-laws like other elderly people, but not like your parents. What's the chidush by the in-laws? Even if they're young, you still have to treat them as they're elderly. That's the extra. That's the extra. Some people have a minhag to kiss their father-in-law's hand, and that's a proper thing to do. But there's no more fear from your in-laws like you have to have fear from your parents. So that's comes out the halakha. Rav Adya Yosef, he says, if you take a look at the word of the Mechilta, he says you'll see this idea in the Mechilta. Why is it not the same level as your parents? Because the Mechilta said, "Mekan lamdu she'adam muchan lechavod chama." Person has to be ready to honor his parents. It doesn't say you have to honor your parents, your parent-in-laws.
I mean, you have to go out of your way, but if they're there, you have to...
Exactly. You be ready for that. But you don't have to go out of your way like you have to do by your own parents. So that's what Rav Adya says. So we talked about the Chaim David Halevi. He says, what's the chiddush? He says the chiddush is like we said that even if they're young, you still have to treat them as they're older. The Pitrei Tshuva, he says, if you really say ishto kegufo, right? If the husband is also obligated to honor his in-laws, similar to his own parents, that should supersede his wife's obligation to him. Right? The halakha is the wife has to mechaber the husband, take care of the husband before her own parents at times. It thus seems that the Bach is correct that chiyuv hakavod for the in-laws is much less than for one's own parents. Because if you say ishto kegufo and my parents-in-law is just like my parents, then my wife has to respect her own parents and she doesn't have to deal with me then, because I have to respect her parents too and take care of them as well. So Rabbi Reuven Grozovsky says, no, the truth is, maybe you do have to give them kibud just like your own parents. But your wife's primary obligation is to her husband and her family. So therefore, she cannot just go and be with her parents the whole time. I'll just mention Moshe Meir Weiss once said a very interesting idea. He said, you should always, so much of the ability the family can, the wife should always go to her parents and give them respect and stuff like that, take care of them. Why? What does the Torah say you get for doing kibbud avim?
Long life.
Long life. He says if you really...
If she's good with that.
He said like this. He said like this. He said if you really love your wife and you want to have a long life with her, then of course you let her do kibbud avim, because then she is going to live longer. And then you'll have more time with her. right? So if you want an extended relationship, you will let her do kibbutz avim. This way, you'll have her longer as well. So again, every family has to figure out what works for them, because you have the kids, you have the husband, you have the wife, you have parents, you have parents-in-laws, you have cousins, you have brothers, siblings. Again, your primary obligation is to your family that's in front of you in your house, but you cannot forget your in-laws and your parents and everybody else. Also, everyone needs to figure out a way that it works, and the person needs advice. You should find someone that is able to give good advice to show them the way through. The Shalos Tshuva, Betzalel Chochmah, or Betzalel Stern says, I'll show you from the Gemara, you don't have to respect your parents-in-laws like your own parents. How do I know? The Gemara in Kiddushin says, Daf Lamed Bet, you can never directly tell your father that he's wrong. Right? Your father said halakha and he said it wrong, you have to segue. Oh, I think maybe like this, maybe like that. Are you sure? Let me see here. Want to review it? You have to find the respectful way to do that. And the Gemara says, on the same Kiddushin, on Daf Pei Aleph, the Gemara says, Rav Chizda and his father-in-law were learning, and his father-in-law said something. Rav Chizda said, you're wrong. So, if he has to respect his father-in-law as his father, he wouldn't be able to say that. You have to still respect your father-in-law. Even if you're telling him you're wrong, you have to do it in a respectful way. And perhaps you should also use the same way you talk to your parents. But based on this Gemara, you see again that there is respect to the parents-in-law, but it's not on the same level as the as the father itself. The Gemara in Pesachim says that you're not allowed to go to the bath with your father, father-in-law, or stepfather. Right? And Yehuda makes an exception, and he says if your father or stepfather need your help, then you're allowed to go with them. But it never says father-in-law. So there are those who want to say, you see from here, that the respect for father and stepfather are even greater than for father-in-law. Why would stepfather be greater than a father-in-law? Because it says in the Torah, kabed et imecha. Kabed et imecha. Respect your mother. The word et includes. Who does it include? Your mother's husband. So if the man's mother was remarried, then he has a higher respect to his mother's husband than to his wife's father. That's the way he brings it over here. Okay, some hashkafic considerations regarding in-laws. What happens if the mother-in-law wants to come and help? Truly help, not the mother-in-laws who don't want to help. Mother-in-law really going to come to help. And the parents, the son-in-law feels that, it's not covered. It's not proper for a mother-in-law to help do all these different things. So they asked Rav Menashe Klein, and Menashe Klein said, Ritzono shel Adam zehu kevodo. If this is what a person wants to do, then that's what they want to do, and that's kavod for them. So you can allow her to do it. And he said, now that she's doing it, you, the man, are going to have more time to learn Torah. So go to the Beit Midrash and learn. Right? So if she's insisting to do it, it's okay to do it because that's what she wants to do. Another thing, person, we talked about sensitivity training, right, in this week's parasha. So another idea. One of the things you should think about your parents-in-laws, right, your father-in-law, your mother-in-law, is that the fact they're the ones who raised your spouse. You married her, right? It means you liked her. There's something about her that you liked. She married you, something that she liked about you, right? Or how did you become you? Your parents raised you. And if your parents raised you, for that itself, you have to have karat hatov. The Gemara tells us, we know that the Gemara in Sot in the end says that in the end of days, daughter-in-laws will rebel against their mothers-in-laws. So there's always going to be some strife. And the smart person will learn how to deal with the situation. It's natural. Mother-in-law, daughter-in-laws, father-in-law, son-in-laws. It's all natural that there be some friction. People with different minds, different sets, different ideas. It's always going to be like that. The smart person knows how to deal with these situations. Rav Yaakov Emden in Shailas Yavid says that it's normal for him to have a bad relationship with his in-laws if they live too close together. So Yaakov Emden was of the idea to create some space. Now, I don't know how much space is space. I don't know if you can live down the hall in the apartment building or across the street or in a town over, or in a different city, or a different state, different country. He didn't really specify the space, but the idea remains a certain space for the family to grow. You don't want to be underneath someone's wings the entire time. Each relationship needs to foster and grow on its own, especially one of a marriage. It's told, the Vilna Gaon, that before he went to Eretz Yisrael, he wrote his family a letter. And he begs his wife and his mother to get along with one another, and asks his wife to honor his mother, K'moshe Katuv b'Torah, although we're not clear what in the Torah he's referring to. It doesn't say in the Torah anywhere that a person has to respect, she has to respect her mother-in-law to that. In the Katuv b'Torah, it doesn't say it, but Rav Vilna Gaon still said to his wife and his mother, please get along. You know, he wanted them to get along. The Tshuva Tasedach Harav writes, L'halacha, you're not allowed to call your in-laws by their first names. You're not allowed to say Alan, whatever his name. You can't call them by first names. It's not kavod. It's not kavod. And it's according to every opinion, no matter if it's Doraita, you have to respect them, or it's the Rabbanan. If you respect them like parents, you have to respect them as elderlies. And he brings down l'halacha because even those elderlies, chashuvim, you're not allowed to call them by their first name. In the Yalkut Yosef, he says the exact same thing. Listen to this. Davar agon v'raish lo likro l'chamav l'chamato b'shemam haprati. You're not allowed to call them by their individual names. Sharei gam l'zekinim chashuvim ein karim b'shemim haprati. And don't call them by their individual names. You're not allowed to call them by their first names. That's what they did where? If that's the title that as an important individual he'll be called, then that would be okay. But to call him in an informal first name like that, not allowed. He says, Yesh noagim likro to his parent-in-law's mother and father-in-law b'shem Abba v'Ima kederech shedavar melech kar l'shalom vein iser b'davar. There's nothing wrong with that. Person should call Iman Abba. It says Yesh nohagu. You definitely should not call them by their first name. You have to give them a respectful title to your in-laws. You could use Abba v'Ima, Mami Tati. Someone once said to me, I'm not comfortable calling my father-in-law Abba, because that's my Abba. So I said, great, so call him Tati, call him Daddy, call him Papa. You're not familiar, because you're thinking of your father when you say Abba. Okay, so you don't want to use the same thing, so you can use another word for that. Right? Although the Yalkut Yosef says, you shouldn't call him Avi Mori. You shouldn't give him my father, my master. That title you should not give to your father-in-law, because that's only for your actual father. And you shouldn't give that to your father-in-law. But to call him Abba, that's more than that's very good. And that's what David HaMelech did. So if you want a biblical precedent of what they called their father-in-law, David HaMelech, according to the Mechilta, called Shaul Abba. So that's your biblical example of how to call parents in-laws. He says over here, here's a very important one. The Mishnah in Ketubot. You listen to this. The Mishnah in Ketubot says, actions that destroy a marriage. You know, one of the worst ones that can destroy a marriage is one who curses his spouse's parents in the spouse's presence. Okay? If you tell your spouse, and your crazy parents, right? You just destroyed everything. And not use the word crazy. Imagine if you use worse words. And I just want to bring out a very important example here too. People don't understand. You mentioned this before about the kids. People don't understand. If you put down your spouse's parents in front of your kids, what you really did was you broke respect to all authorities and all elderlies. People think, I'm going to make fun of that one rabbi, or I'll make fun of that one parent-in-law, or whatever it is. In the end of the day, what you really taught your children was, you don't have to respect elder people. You don't have to respect rabbis. You don't have to respect people who are supposed to get respect. They don't make the differentiation, that in-law, and not this one, and that one, and not that one. They saw you break the barriers of how to treat chashuv of people, it breaks completely throughout. A person has to realize it. So some people don't realize. They think I'll make fun of one. They don't understand. I had a recent case. I'll tell you a recent case. Somebody came to me and said, you have to speak to a certain relative of his doing certain things. I said to that person, let me ask you, what was going on in their family? How did you talk about the Rabbanim in that family? How did they talk? He says, yeah. I said, if you spoke about one rabbi in a not nice way, you already destroyed anything. I can't talk to him. I'm going to come talk to him. He's going to say rabbis are crazy. My parents said that. My grandparents said that rabbis are crazy. So why should I listen to any rabbi now? That's it. You broke down everything. Same is true if you say something about your spouse's parents. You broke down not only your spouse's parents' respect, you broke down your spouse's respect, and you also broke down your own respect. Because if that's what the family sees, right? I think my father used to say this. He used to say, never make fun of your siblings, right? Because you're making fun of your siblings, you're making fun of yourself, right? Because you're related to that person. Those people out there are going to say the whole family's crazy. He's making fun of everybody. Everyone there is crazy. So you have to know how to respect. And that's the Mishnah and Ketubot. In conclusion for this halakha and the hashkafa of honoring in-laws, one is obligated to honor his in-laws and show them a great deal of akarat hatov. The halacha is, accepted halacha is, you do not have to give them the same degree of kavod as one's parents, but you have to make them feel respected and appreciated, and you have to give them the respect of zekenim hashuvim. As elderly people who are hashuv, that's how the same respect you have to give your in-laws. And you can call them Abba, and definitely not call them by their first name.
Is it right to call them Abba and Mami? It's like putting them on the same level as your own parents.
So the Akutra says it's ein isur b'davar, and it's okay to do it, and that's what David and Melech did.
That should be the only problem.
And I told people, my recommendation for people when they say they're a little bit uncomfortable calling their in-laws by their parents' title, so I said use a different title. If you call your mother Mama, call her Ima. If you call your this mom, you can call this one mom. You can use a little bit of different variation in your mind if that's your concern. If that's your concern. But there shouldn't be that concern. But if there is, that's a workaround done. You should definitely not call your mother-in-law, hey, mother-in-law. I don't think that's an appropriate way. Although in Bukharian they say Ochimo. I don't know what that means though. Ochimo. What does that mean, Ochimo?
Our mother.
Our mother. So not mother-in-law, but our mother. Ochimo. So it's our mother.
Ochimo. Write that down.
they use that lashon.
Ochimo.
How do they call a father-in-law?
Ochimo.
Yeah, a father-in-law. Ochimo, I know. How do you say father-in-law? Amak, right. So amak also means uncle. Yeah, amak is a lashon of someone who's elderly and giving respect to amak. Okay, our last piece for tonight, as we always like to conclude with a Rav Belsky, and we only... Shver, it's hard and difficult. Shviger. Okay, Rav Belsky, he gets into this week's parasha. I mean, a lot of different inyonim here, but it says Moshe Allah el ha'elokim. And Moshe went up to Hashem in Shemayim. Now, there is a famous Gemara in Masechet Shabbat on Pei Het Amud Bet, and it says there Moshe Rabbeinu comes up to Shemayim. The Malachei Hasharet say in front of Hashem, Ma lilud isha benenu. What is this man born of a woman doing here? Amar Len, Hashem says to them, hey, he came to accept the Torah. And the Malachim say, what? The Torah that's been coveted, right, for 974 generations before the world was created. You want to give it to Basar V'Adam, Ma Enosh Ki Tizkirenu, U'Ben Adam Ki Tifkedenu. Who are they to get it? Your Hodecha al Hashamayim. It should be in Shamayim. So what does Hashem say to the Malachim? He doesn't say anything. He says to Moshe, Moshe, Hachazir Lahem Tshuva. Give them an answer. So Moshe says, God, what am I supposed to do? They might burn me up. I can't answer here. So he says to him, Amar Lai, Echoz b'chiseh chebodi v'chazor lahen teshuvah. Okay, how do you translate the word echoz? Take hold, grab on to my throne, kiseh hakavod, and give them an answer. Okay, so Moshe tells the angels, Torah sha'ata notein li, the Torah that you're giving to me, right? What does it say there? The God who took you out of Mitzrayim. Were you in Mitzrayim? The Paro, the Paro put you into work. And what does it say in the Torah? You shouldn't have any other gods. Do you live amongst people who have Avodah Zarah? Right? Do you do a malacha at all that you should have a Shabbos? It says, you should honor your parents. Do you have parents? Do you have kino? Do you have Yetzer Hara? Right away they said, you're right. You're right, the Torah belongs to you guys. And right away, each one came and gave a present to Moshe Rabbeinu, including the Malach HaMavet. He gave him the present of the Ketoret, to use it if there was a Magifah, to stop the plague of death. So Rebelsky has a few questions on this Gemara. Number one, the Malachim say, why are you taking the Torah? As if they know what's in the Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu tells them what's in the Torah, all of a sudden they say, you're right. What Chidushin did Moshe Rabbeinu just tell you? You have the Torah. You know what's in the Torah. So until Moshe Rabbeinu said it, you didn't know? And now you're moided to him? So what's going on? Next, says Rav Belsky. But they knew that already. So you have to point it out to them? So that's Rav Belsky's question. Rav Belsky says furthermore. He says, Echos, Moshe Rabbeinu should hold on to the throne? Does Hashem have an actual throne? Is Hashem physical? No. It's Kaviyachol. We're giving it an explanation. So what is Moshe holding on to? So that's Rebelsky's second question. And then he says, why is Moshe Rabbeinu saying, HaTorah she'ata notein li, the Torah that you're giving to me? The Torah is the Torah. It's the same Torah. Well, what Torah? What's the difference? So he brings a famous answer of the Ramban, although he says doesn't answer all the questions. The Ramban says that the Torah is really, it's a bunch of letters together, and depending on where it is, if it's in Shemayim, it might be one combination of letters. It's the same letters, but broken up in different parts. And when it comes down to earth, it's also a different setup. And maybe that's the difference. Rebelsky says, though, that, so what? So they should still have kept it in their form. Why are they sending it down to the earth form? Okay, it's different where it is, but why send it down? So this is, with the last few minutes that we have, I'll try to give you Rav Belsky's Yisoid and this idea. Belsky says, you have to understand that what Torah does for a person. Torah works in two ways. There is a milmala lemata, from on top downwards, and then there's a milmata lemala, from the bottom upwards. And this is how Rav Belsky explains it. He says, from the Torah, one can get a revelation of God. Hashem is revealing himself in the Torah. But guess what? The pasuk says, "Ki lo yoreni ha'adam v'hai." Person can never see the full revelation of Hashem and live. Right? You have the whole Gemara in Chagiga. It went into the Pardes. You can't do it. Even Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to Hashem, panim upanim, and was as close as you can get to talk to Hashem directly. What happens there? He only saw the back. The front he didn't see. So there's a difference here. So says Rav Belsky, Zecher Tzadik Lebracha, that what? Ki lo yireni ha'adam b'chai, that the Malachim were correct. The revelation of God, milmala lemata, works the highest where? In Shamayim. The angels can get the full revelation because they're on a higher madrega. they can get Hashem's full revelation to the extent that they can, but they can get it a lot more than the humans can. So what was Moshe Rabbeinu saying? Moshe Rabbeinu says, you're right. We can't compete with Milmala Lemata. We can't compete with getting the revelation as full as you guys and angels can in heaven. But you know what we can do that you can't? We can do Milmata Lemala. We can take the bottom and we could be Mekadesh it and bring it up. That cannot be done by angels. Angels are omdim. The Navi says in Yecheskel, in Zechariah, the Navi Zechariah says, I have given you a path to walk amongst those that stand. Ben ha'omdim. Angels stand. Angels can't go from bottom up. They're at one place and that's it. They're stationary. Mitnaseim lu'umat tzedafim. They rise up and they fall right back down. They can't go up. So what does Hashem tell Moshe Rabbeinu? Ehoz. Hold on to my throne. And the Psukim here says not just in hold on, but enshroud yourself. Come closer. Come from earth and enter the Rikiah and come up to Rochavot straight to the Kisei HaKavod. Could the angels go to the Kisei HaKavod? The angels are omdim, they're stuck in where they are. What can a human do? He can reach levels that angels can't. He can go milmata limala. He can go from on bottom up. That's what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? The Torah shata noten li. The one you gave me, you gave it to mankind. You gave it to the people. What Torah is this? The Torah milmata limala. Not the Torah that you angels have that go from up down, that Hashem reveals himself. But rather the Torah that allows the mundane to become kadosh. That Torah you don't have. That Torah cannot be in Shamayim. To that the angel said, you're right. You're right. That Torah we're not associated with. That Torah belongs to you. To be able to take mundane, to take the chol and make that kodesh, that we angels cannot do. That's milmata limala. And what do the angels come and say now to Moshe Rabbeinu? Here is all the presents. And what does the Malach HaMavis give Moshe? He gives him the Ketoret. Says Rav Belsky, what's the Ketoret? What's the Ketoret? He says Ketoret is avodah, is service, right? You use it as part of the avodah. He says so much more that the Beit HaMikdash is known as Eretz HaMoriah, the land of Moriah. And Onkesh translates Moriah to be frankincense, to be the Ketoret, Har Hamor, Har Habayit. Why? Because that's avodah. What's avodah? Avodah of a Jew is to take the bottom, the raw materials, and bring that up. So much so, there's a pasuk in Bamidbar, in Parashat Balak. What does it say? Ke'et yomar liYaakov Yisrael ma pa'al kel. What is God doing? Says Rashi, there will yet be a time when the preciousness of the righteous will be revealed to all, for they will sit before him and learn Torah directly from him. They shall occupy a place further than the ministering angels. And the angels will come and ask the people, what is Hashem talking? What is Hashem doing? Why? Because only man can go higher than angels. Only man can go milmata lemala. And that is the Torah Moshe Rabbeinu was asking for. So the Torah is not, let me understand God. Let me get his revelation. The Torah is, let me pick up myself to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And b'schut zeh, and this idea from Rav Belsky, we should be zeicha to do this, to pick ourselves up. We get the Torah in this week's parasha. We know what to do with Torah, to learn it and pick ourselves up higher and higher.